everyone, and welcome to Community Spotlight, exclusively here on RCN. Glad you could join us. I'm Dan Mowdy. Well, taking a look at some of the issues affecting all of us living here on planet Earth, I think global warming certainly is one that comes to mind. And one way that folks can do their part in making sure that the globe stays a little more temperate is finding alternate means of transportation. And there's a group in the Lehigh Valley that is first and foremost behind that effort. The Coalition for Appropriate Transportation has been working with folks and getting them on their bikes and on their feet and finding great ways to get where you're going without burning some kind of fuel. We're lucky to have with us some members of this organization. Joining us for our first session here today, we have Jason Schiffer, an attorney for cyclists through Cohen, Feely, Altomos, and Rambo. He is also the former chief of police and bicycle patrol officer for the city of Bethlehem. And Jason, welcome to Community Spotlight.
Thank you, Dan.
Also joining us, coming back for more, I should say, is John Schubert, a cycling expert and certified in instructing cycling savvy. John, welcome to Community Spotlight.
Hi, Dan. Thanks.
And we'll be joined by Coalition for Appropriate Transportation Executive Director Scott Slingerland a little bit later on in the show. Well, gentlemen, let me start by first asking, how did you get involved with this effort? And Jason, I'll start with you. I know through the city of Bethlehem and your association with the police force there as a former chief, the bike patrol is a big part of what Bethlehem Police do.
Yes, it is. I started as a Bethlehem police officer in 1994. I had a history of racing BMX bikes, mountain bikes prior to that. So when Bethlehem started the bike patrol unit, it seemed like something I just had to be a part of, primarily just because I love to ride bikes. And I started on the unit in 1998 and just fell in love with just the way bicycling, using a bicycle as a tool, changed the entire job of a law enforcement officer. Put you in touch with the community. You got to know your surroundings and your beat so much better than being in a car. It was really a great tool to use. And so then I moved on and became a police cyclist instructor to teach other police officers around the area, how to use the bike as an effective law enforcement tool.
Excellent. And I've heard through other sources that the Bethlehem bicycle force has been one that's kind of been emulated throughout the country with other police forces.
Yeah, we were really fortunate. Had a lot of strong support from the community. In the beginning, the entire unit was formed with donations from the community with the bikes and uniforms. And I believe we were a model to follow. We would go to international conferences around the country, and a lot of police departments around the country began to follow what we were doing right here in Bethlehem.
It's fantastic. And now, as an attorney with the law firm Cohen, Feely, Altomos, and Rambo, you find yourself representing some folks that are involved in mishaps out there on the road, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's true. That came about quite unexpectedly, but in my experience with the police department and working with CAT, I became a cycling advocate in that career, and now I'm fortunate to be able to continue those efforts as an attorney representing cyclists and pedestrians and advocating for cycling safety and pedestrian safety throughout the Lehigh Valley.
Excellent, Jason. John, welcome back. As we said before, tell me, how did you get involved with Coalition for Appropriate Transportation?
I've been in the Lehigh Valley since 1979, came here to work for Bicycling Magazine originally, and somehow I got involved with CAT. It's a great group of people. Not all volunteer organizations are all that much fun, but CAT has always been fun to work with.
I'll bet. Some of the issues that you guys bring to the fore when kind of sharing your knowledge base with folks who maybe want to dust off that old rust bucket that they might have hanging in their garage for the first time in years. I guess visibility is one of the key factors to make sure that you're safe out there when sharing the road with other vehicles.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll start out by saying that we can put a man on the moon, but we're having trouble getting people to use lights at night. And we brought a few lights here just to show how easy, cheap, and convenient this is. These are, gosh, they're a few bucks. And look at that, hide in the palm of your hand. And these are supposed to be emergency lights. They'll get you home. But you can put these in your pocket or your tool bag or something. And so even if you don't think of yourself as a night rider, find these at a shop, and you'll be then for that unexpected moment, you're covered.
That's not a bad idea, because you never know when you'll have maybe a mechanical to take care of, mechanical difficulty, or what you're doing on the bike is just so much fun you didn't realize that the sun's starting to set and now you got to get back home.
Got two more lights real quick. This one I grabbed right before we came here, and it's actually a teachable moment because you can barely see it because I let the batteries roll down. So what's the lesson there? Replace your batteries often. You can get batteries at Dollar Tree. No excuse for not having good batteries.
And a lot of these come with rechargeable batteries now.
They do.
A USB connector gets you charged back up.
I'm a triple A guy myself. I'm old school. And then if you really want to go with it, this is there's a couple of companies that compete to make the brightest possible light, and this is one is called the Portland Designs Danger Zone. So anyway, you can.
Now, are you changing the pattern there with your fingers, or is
Yeah.
that doing it? Okay, I was going to say.
there's-
So you got several to choose from there.
You got several to choose from. The engineers have fun doing that.
I think the next revision might be one that just mixes all of those patterns. That truly gets your attention there.
You can get a job designing it.
Lighting has certainly come a long way through the years. It wasn't all that long ago that the batteries took up a whole water bottle cage and would only last maybe 2 hours. Now you have lights that far surpass those in brightness and are probably cheaper than the tax we paid on those lights just 10 or 15 years ago. So there's really no excuse to not have a light with you. It's a great thing.
We mentioned Scott Slingerland. I have a feeling that he might be getting paid the royalties for modeling the visibility of this bicycle by some stretch of the imagination. But maybe you can talk a little bit about what he's done to his bike there to kind of make sure it's visible both daytime and nighttime.
Well, Jason, when you say Scott's risk adverse with that outfit,
I would say so. He's doing probably everything he can to be visible to traffic.
Yeah.
And a lot of what you see there is reflective material, the triangle and those little heart-shaped things on his panniers. But one thing I want to emphasize is you need real lights in addition to reflective material. A reflector depends on the other guy. A real light works when the other guy's lights aren't pointed at you or they're turned off. So have lights. Have a headlight and have a tail light. Have a headlight because you want people coming at you to see you. Otherwise, they'll turn across your path at an intersection or things like that.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. Traffic flow is what we're going to be talking about in our next segment. And the point you make is also very valid, too. You can't count on someone at dusk having their headlights on. Sometimes they take a little longer to get them on, and a reflector won't do the job. We'll be back to talk more about traffic flow when riding a bicycle right after this on Community Spotlight. And you're back with us here on Community Spotlight. Even if you want nothing to do with getting on a bicycle, if you own a car or you drive one, you'll want to see this next segment. Coalition for Appropriate Transportation is here from the Lehigh Valley, and we're lucky enough to have Jason and John with us, with Scott to join us for the third segment to talk a little bit about bicycle maintenance and mechanics. But this segment has everything to do with being a driver as well as a cyclist. And fellas, I know traffic flow is a curiosity, not just to some new cyclists, but also to a lot of motorists out there. What are some of the situations that both motorists and cyclists have to be wary of?
Well, one of the things that I learned from the coalition when I got involved with them years ago as a police cyclist was that your lane positioning as a cyclist has a lot to do with how visible you are and how you're communicating with the other drivers of vehicles. So having a cyclist ride further out into the lane is something that makes you more visible to the drivers of cars. You're in that traffic lane, the scanning area where a motorist is looking for a bicyclist, which is so important to be in that area rather than riding tucked all the way off to the side. There's so many dangers on the side of the road, whether it's opening car doors or potholes or sewer grates and things like that. That make it less safe to be there, but also you're out of that normal scanning area of motorists, and you're not predictable, and you just cannot be seen nearly as much as being out into that lane of travel.
That's a good point. John, you had a phrase before that I hadn't heard before, edge rider.
Yeah.
As when it comes to being a cyclist.
Well, yeah, and that's what most people are. have this high-tech diagram here to show you. And there's a bicyclist riding right along the edge. He gets all the broken glass, the sewer grates, the potholes. And the other thing is, this motorist behind him here, as he comes along, if he sees the edge rider, he ignores him. Because what do you do when you're driving? You watch where you're going, okay? And he watches where he's going, he ignores the edge rider. So he'll come up here to this intersection, make a turn. He won't even have noticed that he's passed this edge rider. Now, if you're riding in a lane control position, this motorist knows that he has to pay attention to you. He's going to have to put on his turn signal, do a shoulder check, move the steering wheel 3 inches, maybe 4 inches to go around you.
Right.
And then he's a lot less likely to do something stupid at the intersection. He's going to have accounted for your presence, or otherwise he would ignore your presence. Now, here's a motorist at the intersection too. Who's he going to see quicker, that guy or that guy? There's a tree there blocking his view of that guy. There's a motorist here. He wants to make a left turn. Is he going to walk? And he's looking for traffic. Is he looking for stuff in the gutter? No. He's looking for traffic, and the traffic is there. So what you will find is when you change your road position, everybody else on the road gets smarter.
Good point.
They drive better just because you moved a few feet that way.
Well, as far as pacing goes, do you want to be moving close to the speed of traffic if you're going to be out a little further from the edge?
It doesn't have to be. Every bicyclist rides his own speed. You know, I got a 100 watt motor on a good day. You know, I'm an old, gentle, slow rider, and so we're talking about city traffic. You know, city
right.
traffic,
Stop and go.
Stop and go.
Yeah, you're only going to make it up to the next red light.
Yeah.
So,
and you have, not only do you have the same right to travel as all these other people, you have a superior right. They have the privilege of operating a car. You have a right to travel.
good point. We do have some video that your organization was kind enough to provide. Let's take a look at how it looks from the standpoint of behind the handlebars here. This is Route 611 in Easton, which take a look at the shoulder first of all and how it varies here. You've got plenty of room on the right side of the white line, and then all of a sudden it seems to start to disappear a little bit, including a rock wall which comes up, and then, you know, front lawns, all of those kind of challenges, some shrubbery that may or may not be trimmed. It's a challenge. I can see where edge riding might not be the best thing, especially when going around a curve, and there's the pothole that you don't see coming.
And a minute ago, you saw somebody make a full lane change to overtake and pass that bicyclist.
When it's safe, that's a good way, and that's the law now, isn't it?
That's right.
Yes, it is.
What exactly does the law say in Pennsylvania as far as passing
The law
a cyclist?
says that as a motorist, you must provide 4 feet of space between your car and the cyclist that you pass, and that you are permitted to cross over a double yellow line to make that pass as long as it's safe to do so. But if you have to wait for a few seconds until that opening comes up, well, then you wait a few seconds.
Absolutely. And you see some situations here as well. I like the fact that Scott, I think, is the pilot of the camera bike there. He's got something flowing in the background, which also kind of grabs your attention if you're a car motorist. And then making a left-hand turn. Use that left-hand turn lane, it looks like, right, guys?
That's absolutely
And
what
you
he's
see him
doing.
signaling there as well, communicating with everyone else on the roadway what you're intending on doing. As a cyclist, that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you make your turn signals, make them like you mean it. Don't just dry your fingernail polish. Make the signal like you mean it.
Because if your hand's drooping down, a lot of times you'll just see like a low hand pointing in a direction. You could be pointing out a pothole rather than, you know, signaling you're making that turn.
In the police courses, we would teach you to try to make eye contact with the drivers that you're communicating with, and forcefully make those motions. Show those other drivers exactly what you intend on doing. And then their communication takes place, and you're much safer when that happens.
Absolutely. Very little protection when it comes to riding a bicycle in urban areas. You have a helmet and that's it. How important is it to get the message across to motorists that the reason why that bike is in front of you in your lane is a good one?
It's important. You answered your own question before you were finished asking it.
I mean, it's a human being riding a bicycle, trying to get someplace. You know, it's not something that's in your way. It's a person. You know, so as long as motorists see that this is just a person trying to get someplace on a bike. They have every right to be there. In the thousands of miles that I logged as a police officer riding around Bethlehem, I can't tell you how many times that we would just go light to light, and I could go virtually as fast as everyone else in the car while I was on my bike. They might pass me mid-block, but then I'd catch up at the end of the block. They're really not getting anywhere any faster by being impatient in town.
And just a note, because I do spend a little bit of time on my bike, more trails than roads these days, but blasting past a cyclist, for what reason? You can go the same speed that you've been going to get around them, and it doesn't have to be within a half a second either. And the less exhaust coming from tailpipes, the better for all of us, I think.
We'll go with that.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, gentlemen, first of all, thank you for coming on. Great job.
Thank you.
And again, our guest, Jason Schiffer. He is a former police chief with the city of Bethlehem and an attorney for cyclists with Cohen, Feely, Altimos, and Rambo. And John Schubert, back for giving us some expertise on cycling and a cycling-savvy instructor with Coalition for Appropriate Transportation. Thanks again, guys. When we come back, we'll take a look at how to get that bike in shape. It's springtime, after all, and it's time to get riding. So stay with us here on Community Spotlight. And welcome back to Community Spotlight. Coalition for Appropriate Transportation taking this focus this week, and they want to let you know that Lehigh Valley Bike to Work Week is happening May 12th through the 21st. They've got all kinds of great things to find out about this event online at lvcat.org. And there's free food involved. Johnny's Bagels is kicking in with a breakfast. Queen City Barbecue is providing a dinner. Bethlehem City Hall also having a breakfast during that week, and plenty more fun and activities and food to enjoy. So be sure to check out lvcat.org for that. The Executive Director of Coalition for Appropriate Transportation joins us, Scott Slingerland. Welcome back to Community Spotlight.
Thank you, Dan.
And thanks for bringing all the hardware here. I guess bicycle maintenance is taking center stage here.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about what a rider should do. And you're saying not just at the beginning of the year,
Sure.
but every time they go to take their bike out.
Okay, Dan, thank you. What I'd like to demonstrate today is what we call an ABC quick check. And this is a basic check that no matter what kind of rider you are, if you're a professional racer, if you're a daily commuter, you ride your bike to work every day, if your bike's been hanging up in the garage for 5 years, or even for your kid's bike, this is an ABC quick check that is a kind of a quick go over to make sure the basic systems are operational.
Excellent.
All right.
Where do you start?
All right, so ABC quick check starts with A for air in the tires, and basically you would squeeze your tires. If they feel firm, make sure they're really firm.
Yeah.
The best thing you can do is, I'll show you over here if you want to hold on to that. You can get a floor pump for probably under $30, and it has a gauge on it. With this tire, if I squeeze this tire, I mean, it's not bad, but I don't know if the camera can see that if I were to hit a pothole, it would probably damage the rim.
Right, don't want to do that.
So what I'm going to do is start to inflate this tire, and also point out that every tire on every bike has a number on the side that's the rated pressure for the tire. So this tire is about 40 to 60 psi, and when I get it to 40, I try not to stress the valve when I take off the pump. When I get it to 40, it's pretty firm. And the minimum of the tire range is enough to protect the rim and to give you a smooth ride.
So a more comfortable ride that way.
So yeah, you have that range, and if you'd like a soft ride, you can be at the low end. If you're on a fast, hard bike ride, you can pump it up more.
Excellent. So A for air.
Right. And to point out that the air is probably the most critical, because somebody whose bike's been hanging up for even a month probably has lost enough pressure that it's too soft to ride.
Right.
And we hear people get them out of their garage and they say, I have 2 flat tires. And that's likely that the pressure has leaked out, which is normal.
Yeah, over time.
And you need to pump it up.
How about B? What does B stand for?
Okay, B is for brakes, which if you have handbrakes, I squeeze the lever and it should feel pretty firm.
Okay.
Right? So that means I can still get my thumb under the grip, between the grip and the lever, and I squeeze it. And it stops the bike, right? If we were to get into more detail, you'd make sure the pads are hitting the rim. But basically, a firm lever is good. My front brake seems to have a problem. The lever has gone, it goes all the way to the grip,
I see.
and it does not have any effectiveness. Right?
Luckily, in this case, it looks like an easy solution.
Yeah, so we, the simple solution is to connect the brake caliper there. So that's a quick release. If you want to take the wheel off, you can connect or disconnect.
I see. And you mentioned brake pads. You're saying that they need to hit the rim, which sounds, you know, self-describing, but sometimes they'll veer off and hit the rubber as well of the tire. You don't want
Right,
that.
right. You don't want the tire missing the rim or hitting the tire.
Gotcha. Okay. So A for air, B for brakes.
Right. So those are probably the most critical to start with, and the easiest to check. If you do this yourself, it takes about 10 seconds.
Excellent.
I'm moving around to the front because when we get to C, we're talking about the drivetrain. Right?
Ah, okay.
So we're talking about making sure the chain is on the gears, right? And it's running smoothly, right? So even when I backpedal here, it's a smooth. There's no jumping of the chain. And as you are helping, if you have a friend, they can help and lift the bike up. If you don't have many bike tools at home, if you have a horizontal tree branch, say you're in the middle of a ride and you have a problem,
Yeah.
you can hang the nose of the saddle
Just
from
like
a
that.
horizontal tree branch
Excellent.
and do some basic checks.
Nice.
So when we get to drivetrain, we make sure that the chain is on, the cranks are on, the pedals are on.
And pedals
else can we
do
check?
sometimes unwind. I mean, I've had a pedal come off in the distant end of an out and back ride, and that
Yeah.
is no fun pedaling with one
Yeah.
foot.
I bet it was the left pedal too, because it's always the left
You're
pedal.
right. You're right.
And the left crank arm that are prone to possibly falling off.
Yeah, it's just the way it is.
I can demonstrate.
You know what, Scott? We are
Yeah.
just about out of time.
Okay.
But thank you very much for bringing the bike and
Thank you.
setting it up and letting us know what to look for. The ABC. So it's air, it's brakes, and it's cranks.
Yeah, drive
Chains, drive chains.
crank.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all the time we have for tonight, folks. Thanks for joining us on Community Spotlight. So long, everyone.